I need to tell you something I've never said out loud to anyone. Not my therapist, not my closest friend. Only my wife knows the full weight of it. And even she doesn't know how loud it still is in my head almost a year later. My mother looked me in the eyes and she said, "Please don't abandon me." And I told her I wouldn't, and then I did. Let me back up. Let me tell you how we got there. I'm 40 years old now. I live in Texas with my wife of 23 years and our kids. I have a house, a routine, a life I built brick by brick, far away from where I grew up. And where I grew up was not a soft place. I don't say that for sympathy. I say it because you can't understand what happened later without understanding what happened first. I was 12 years old the first time I turned to substances, not because I was rebellious, not because I was curious in the way kids are supposed to be curious. I was 12 because home wasn't safe and using was the only thing that made the noise in my head go quiet. What started small got heavier fast, and by 16, I was deep into a full blown addiction, the kind that ages a kid decades in his head before his body ever catches up. I don't need to give you every detail. I'll just say this: what happened to me as a child was serious. It happened more than once, and nothing was ever done about it. No consequences for anyone, no protection for me, just silence and the expectation that I would carry it and keep moving. So I did. I carried it and I moved. It took me years, years of work, of falling down and getting back up, of choosing every single day to not become what I came from, to build the life I have now. A wife who loves me, kids who are safe, a home where the loudest sound at night is the air conditioning, not somebody screaming. That's the life I built. That's the life that was on the verge of collapsing because of what happened with my mother. My mother is 59. She's my mom. I love her. I want to say that clearly because everything I'm about to tell you might make it sound like I don't. I do. I love her the complicated way you love someone who hurt you and also gave you life and also somehow still needs you to save them. At the end of 2024, I got a phone call from my aunt, my mother's sister, and she was screaming, not talking, screaming. My mother had had a medical emergency tied to her medication and was in serious danger. My mother has struggled with a dependency on pain medication for a long time. It's not a secret in our family. It's the elephant that's been sitting in every room for years. My mother had been staying alone in a trailer just up the street from my aunt, north of Los Angeles. And my aunt and my mother, they fought constantly about the pills, about the lying, about the using. It had gotten to the point where my aunt could barely be in the same room with her anymore. So when that call came in, panicked and screaming, it wasn't just fear for my mother's life. It was fear layered on top of years of exhaustion. My mother survived. She went to the hospital, got stabilized, got discharged. And when she called me afterward, she said she wanted to come stay with me and my wife in Texas just for a few months, she said, just to get away from California, just to get back on her feet. I want to be honest with you about something because this story only makes sense if I am. I didn't fully believe her. Something in me, some old instinct built from 30 years of watching this exact pattern, told me this wasn't a visit, and it turned out I was right. Before she even got on the plane, my mother had already started switching her Medicaid and her government assistance over to Texas. She wasn't coming to visit, she was coming to move in. She just hadn't said that part out loud. She bought a one-way ticket. We can talk about return flights later, she said. And because she's my mother, because some part of me will always be that 12-year-old kid who wanted her to be okay, I let her come. The first few weeks were manageable. Difficult, but manageable. Then the weeks turned into a month, then two, then 4 months had gone by, and it became clear this wasn't a stopover. This was a relocation, and nobody but her had agreed to it. My wife and my kids. They value their privacy. That's not a small thing when you have someone in your home who doesn't respect it. My mother smokes cigarettes daily. She's on pills daily. And my wife and kids don't want that around them, around our home, around our life. I understand that completely. I would have wanted the same thing if I were them. But my mother needed things. Every day, pills, extra food and snacks, even though she's diabetic and shouldn't have been eating half of what she was eating. Sodas, cigarettes, all of it out of my pocket every single day. It wasn't just financial, though that added up fast. It was the constant, exhausting negotiation, the begging, the guilt she'd lay down like a rug in front of every request. My wife reached a breaking point. She told me plainly my mother needed to go back to Los Angeles, back to my brothers, back to her sister. She couldn't keep living in our house like this. And I knew she was right. I knew it in my chest before I even let myself think it in words. Then there was Disney World. We took a family trip, my wife, my kids, and my mother. And what should have been a 14-hour drive turned into almost 17, because every hour, sometimes less, my mother needed to stop, a cigarette, a restroom break, another cigarette. I remember sitting in that driver's seat, watching the exits pass, feeling this strange, quiet grief. Not anger, exactly. Grief. Because I could see, in real time, what addiction had done to the woman who raised me, and I could see what trying to accommodate that addiction was doing to my own family in the back seat. Somewhere on that trip, or maybe right after it, I had to say something to my mother I never thought I'd have to say out loud. I told her that taking care of her had started to feel like taking care of another child, not a partner in the household, not a mother easing into her golden years with dignity, a dependent who needed constant management, constant supervision, constant financial support, and who, more often than not, was under the influence and didn't remember what she'd said or done the day before. She'd act irrationally in public, say things that embarrassed the kids, embarrassed my wife, embarrassed all of us, and then not remember it happened. I had to apologize to her. Do you understand how strange that sentence is? I had to apologize to my own mother and tell her that my family, my wife, my children, didn't want her in our home anymore. Then, in February of 2025, she came to me with a different story. She said she needed to fly back to California for back surgery. Said her doctor wouldn't refill her prescriptions over the phone, that she had to be seen in person. I remember watching her pack. I remember she stopped halfway through folding something and looked up at me. Her eyes were the saddest I think I've ever seen them. Please don't abandon me, she said. And I hugged her. I told her I wouldn't. I bought her a one-way ticket. I didn't tell her when or if she'd be coming back. I want to sit in that moment for a second, because I think that's the part that still keeps me up at night. It wasn't a dramatic betrayal. There was no yelling, no slammed door, no final confrontation. It was quiet. It was a hug and a promise, and a plane ticket that only went in one direction. That's how you can abandon someone, not with cruelty, but with the absence of a return flight. She flew home. I arranged for her to stay with my brother and his family for a little while until she could find a place of her own. And then I stepped back, not out of her life completely. I still call, I still check in, but out of the role I'd been playing, the role of full time caretaker, the role of the son who would absorb any cost, any chaos, any risk to his own marriage and his own children to keep his mother close. I made a choice. I chose my wife of 23 years. I chose my kids and their right to feel safe and private in their own home. I chose the life I spent decades building out of the wreckage of the one I was given, and I still hear her voice. Please don't abandon me. It plays back at random moments, washing dishes, driving to work, lying awake at 2 in the morning. I hear it, and some part of me still feels like I failed her. But here's what I've had to sit with, slowly, painfully, over the months since. Loving someone and being able to save them are not the same thing. I could not fix my mother's addiction by absorbing it into my household. I could not outlove a substance that had a stronger grip on her than any of us did. And staying in a situation that was actively breaking my marriage and unsettling my children wasn't loyalty. It was just a different kind of harm, aimed at different people I also love. I don't know if what I did was right. I don't think there was a version of this where everyone walked away whole. I think sometimes love means staying. And I think sometimes love means knowing you can't stay and choosing to protect the people who are counting on you to still be standing. I didn't abandon my mother because I stopped loving her. I stepped back because I was standing in the wreckage of two things I loved, and I could only keep one of them from collapsing completely. She's still my mother. I still call her. I still worry about her every single day. But I am no longer willing to let her addiction dictate the safety of my home. I don't know if that makes me a good son or a bad one. Some days I believe both things at once. If you're listening to this and you've ever had to choose between the family that raised you and the family you built, I think you already understand. There's no clean answer. There's just the quiet every night where you replay the moment you said, I won't, and you sit with what it cost you to keep that promise or to break it. I broke it, and I'm still learning how to live with that.